Good evening, everyone. This is Ann Carmichael. I'm presenting tonight on behalf of Leela, and we're going to be talking about the college financial aid process. But before we get started, if you don't mind, use the Zoom chat box to enter the student's name so I can let Ms. Carlino know that you attended this evening. And you can also use the chat box throughout the presentation to ask any questions that you might have as I move through the material, and I'll be happy to answer those questions at the end of the presentation. All right. The free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, really initiates the college financial aid process. It's not only your application for federal grants and scholarships, it's also your application for the TOPS scholarship, of course, Pell Grant, Federal Work Study, the Louisiana Go Grant, federal student loans, subsidized, unsubsidized, and Parent Plus loans, and then private scholarships and a lot of institutional aid. Thank you for your patience as I continue to admit students. And just wanted to remind everybody to mute your microphone so that we don't have any distractions. Thanks. Okay, the federal student aid that we're going to talk about tonight includes free money, borrowed money, and earned money. The free money is going to include the federal Pell Grant, the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teach Grant, the Military Service Grant. The earned money is Federal Work Study. These are on-campus jobs and they look great on your first professional resume. These are jobs where the student will receive pay for the work hours that they do, the hours that they do work on campus, and then those monies are used to help pay college expenses. Now, this can greatly reduce the student's student loan debt, so please consider those. And then, of course, the federal direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and Parent Plus loan. Now, you, the student, could be awarded one or all of these federal dollars just by completing the FAFSA. All the monies can be used at 2- and 4-year public and private colleges, community colleges, career and technical schools, for part-time and online college courses. All U.S. citizens and U.S. nationals can complete a FAFSA, and also those eligible non-citizens, such as those with a green card, an arrival departure record, those with battered immigrant status, and those who have a T visa. Now, if the parents do not have any of these documents, the student can still submit a FAFSA, but anywhere a parent's information is asked for, when they ask for that social security number, you will simply record zeros. The FAFSA really shouldn't take longer than 30 to 45 minutes to complete, as long as you have all the documents that you need to complete the form on hand when you begin. Those documents are going to include the student and parents' social security cards, because the name printed on that card has to, I'm sorry, I have some noise in the background. Your name has to be provided within the FAFSA exactly as it's printed on your most recent social security cards. The student and parents' 2021 federal income tax returns, if you filed one, all W-2s from your employer and employers for the 2021 tax year. Copies of your bank statements and investment account statements, and then a list of colleges that the student is interested in applying for. Now, you can add up to 10 colleges every time you submit your FAFSA, so make sure you have a variety of schools on your list. If you're planning to apply to more than 10 schools, we're going to talk about the procedure for doing that as well. Even if you haven't completed your admissions applications at those schools, go ahead and send your FAFSA data over to them. And remember that aid is awarded on a first come, first served basis. So the sooner you get your FAFSA submitted, the sooner you're going to receive your financial aid offer. There are FAFSA deadlines to keep in mind. Every college will have a priority financial aid deadline. You'll want to keep track of those. There is a deadline for submitting the FAFSA to be eligible for the TOPS scholarship, and federal student aid has a deadline as well. You'll want to get started by creating a federal student aid ID for the student and one of her parents. This is the student and parents electronic signature, and it's used to sign all federal student aid documents. Now, remember that you do have to submit a FAFSA every academic year. So you'll need to make sure that you're recording your username and password that you will create using your personal information, but that you're keeping it in a very safe place because it is legally binding. Your next step, once you have your FSA ID, is to log into the FAFSA site. This is what the home page will look like. There are a variety of resources within this site, so take a look around before you get started. You want to begin by identifying yourself. Are you the student who's completing the student section of the FAFSA, or are you the parent who wants to go into the FAFSA and provide your information within the student's FAFSA? You'll next be asked to provide the student's personal identifiers, name, birth date, and social security number, and then the student's federal student aid ID. Now, remember, when you log in, you're going to see two options. The 2022-23 FAFSA is for students who are in college this academic year, and there are still some who are submitting FAFSAs, but you, the class of 2023, want to complete the 23-24 FAFSA. That is usually for the fall and spring semesters. Now, if you're going to be entering college early, perhaps this summer after graduation, contact that college and find out if their summer semester is included in the 22-23 academic year or the 23-24 academic year. You could have to complete both FAFSAs. You'll then be asked to create a save key. This is just an additional layer of security. It's just a short password that you, the student, will create, and it's used in case you don't complete your FAFSA in one sitting. You will need to re-enter this save key if you want to go back and finish up your FAFSA. There are 7 sections in the FAFSA that need to be completed before you can submit. You'll have the student demographic section where the student will report information about him or herself, name, birth date, personal email address, your mobile phone number, and don't share this information with parents or other people. Make sure it's personal to you, the student. Of course, your home address. Then you'll be asked about your residency. Colleges use this to determine whether to award you in or out of state tuition. You're asked about your citizenship and your education level. Will you be graduating with a high school diploma or a GED? What degree will you be working on during the 23-24 academic year? Will you have your first bachelor's degree by then? And then this is important to remember. For FAFSA purposes, all students entering college for the first time will report that they have never attended college in their first year. Even if you've taken AP courses or you're in dual enrollment courses, for FAFSA purposes, you must report that you are a first year student and have never attended college. Here's the work study question, so please consider that as well. You'll be asked if you've been in the foster care system. There are additional monies available to those who have been. What is your parents' highest school completed? This is important because there could be additional resources for students who are first generation college graduates. Now you'll add the name of your high school and put it in the format that Federal Student Aid needs to have it in so that they can alert your school that you have submitted your FAFSA. Next, you'll begin to enter your colleges. Now, remember that I mentioned you can add up to 10 colleges, and I hope that you are entering a variety of schools. You may receive more financial aid from one school than you do from another because Federal Student Aid does not make these award offers. It's up to the colleges themselves. If price is important to you, please consider adding as many schools as you think you will consider. You will select those schools and then you will provide them with information on your housing plans. Now, if you do decide to apply to more than 10 colleges, you will add your first 10 colleges, submit the FAFSA, and then once it's processed, go back in and continue to add more colleges. But remember that you must submit each time. The student will be asked about their marital status in the dependency status section, if they have dependents, and then you'll move on to the dependency status questions. These are important to determine whether the student is an independent or dependent student. And this is for FAFSA purposes. The questions you'll be asked, we'll go over them briefly, are, were you born before January 1 of 2000? As of today, are you married? At the beginning of the 23-24 school year, will you be working on a master's or doctorate program? Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? Now, remember, they're asking the student these questions. Are you a veteran? Do you now or will you have children who receive more than half of their support from you between July 1st of 2023 and June 30th of 2024? Do you have dependents who live with you and who receive more than half of their support from you? At any time since you turned 13, were both of your parents deceased, or were you in foster care, or were you a ward or a dependent of the court? Next, as determined by a court in your state of legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor? Or does someone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship of you? And then at any time during the academic year, did your school district identify you as an unaccompanied youth who's homeless or at risk of being homeless? Now, if the student can answer yes to just one of these questions and provide legal documentation showing that to be true, then they will be able to skip over the parent information. But what if a student cannot answer one of those questions, but he doesn't live with his legal parents? Perhaps he lives with grandparents or other relatives. For whatever reason, do those people provide their information on the student's FAFSA? And the answer to that is no. Only your legal parents provide information about themselves on your FAFSA. Even if someone else lists you as a dependent on their income tax return, you still must provide information about your legal parents. Now, if those parents have adopted you, they are your legal parents and you will provide information about them. Now, remember that if a student still cannot get information from their legal parents to provide on the FAFSA, the student can submit their FAFSA without parental information, but they will only be offered federal student loans. So in order to be considered for the grant money, if you find yourself in this situation, go ahead and submit your FAFSA, but it's your responsibility to contact the financial aid offices and let them know about your special circumstances. This student is dependent, so he will provide information about his parents. We'll move into the parent demographic section where you will begin to enter information about your parents, or if your parents choose, they can log in and provide their information themselves. But who is your parent when you are submitting your FAFSA? If your parents are married and you're living in their household, you will provide information on both of those parents. Even if your parents are unmarried, but they're living together and you're in that household, you will provide information about both of them. But what if the parent that you've lived with the longest in the past 12 months is either married, divorced, separated, or was never married? Then you will provide information on the parent that you lived with the longest in the past 12 months, and only that legal parent. If you lived with both parents the same amount of time, down to the minute, you will be asked to provide the information of the parent who provided you with the most financial support over the past 12 months. Now, if the parent that you have identified as your legal parent, whose household you've been living in the majority of the time, is remarried, then you must provide information about that step parent as well. Because federal student aid wants to get an idea of the financial standing of the household that the student has lived in the longest in the 12 months prior to submitting the FAFSA. Now we'll move to the parent demographics. Once you've identified who the parents are, you'll provide their marital status, or if they're separated or divorced, you will also enter that, and you'll need those dates as well. If you're providing information on both parents, you will begin by selecting one parent to report as parent one. You can see the information here that's requested, but I will give you a tip here. If you are providing information on two parents, when you see this parent email address, make sure that you're entering the email address of the parent who created the federal student aid ID, because whatever is in that ID for the parent must be listed here in the parent section of the FAFSA. Same thing in the student section. If the student uses their personal email address in the FSA ID, but say they use their school email address or a different email address within the FAFSA, everybody's going to have a hard time signing the FAFSA because everything has to match those IDs. Parents' legal residence is required, and then parents will begin to report any dependent children they have, any other children that live in the household or perhaps are in college that really are still financially supported by the parent will be listed here. If there are any other dependents within the household, like a relative that your parents financially support, you can also get credit and report that adult as well. Next, you will be given the opportunity to report the number of students that you will have in college during the 23-24 academic year. Next, we'll move to the parent financial section where parents will report if they've completed a return for 2021. What type of return is it? What was your tax filing status? And all of this is printed on your 2021 federal income tax return. So make sure you have a copy of it with you as you're moving through this section. Also, I'm going to encourage you all to use the IRS data retrieval tool. It makes the process go a lot smoother. It's quicker. Your information is going to be more accurate. And if you choose not to use this tool, but you manually enter your information from your tax return, which is your decision to do, you almost always will be asked by each of your colleges to go to the IRS, request a tax transcript, and send it to them. So that can be tedious. It's always best to try to use the IRS data retrieval tool. You'll identify which parent has the federal student aid ID and move on into the IRS website. When you're in that website, you want to make sure that the information you're providing, your street address, your city, state, and zip is exactly as it is printed on that return from 2021. The IRS wants to make sure that the person in their site is the person that filed that return. Even if you've moved since 21 and your home address is listed differently within the demographic section of the FAFSA, in the IRS site, you must provide information from your 21 tax return. You will give the IRS permission to transfer your information into the FAFSA, and most fields will show transferred from the IRS. They'll be written in bold letters within the fields so that you do not have to go to your return and manually enter that information. But there are still fields that need to be reviewed. You don't want to leave any fields blank when you're completing the FAFSA. Now, this is one of the reasons that you do need your W-2s with you before you begin, because your income from work is not listed. If you filed a joint return, on the return, you will not see how much parent one made versus parent two. So you'll grab your W-2s and provide that information. Now, when you're going through the FAFSA, if you do not quite understand or you're a little bit cautious about what to report in these fields, you can always use the question mark beside each field, and it is a great resource for more information about exactly what they want you to enter and where to find that information. Parents will begin to enter additional financial information if it pertains to them, and report any untaxed income that they've received, such as child support. Now, look down and you can see the payments to tax-deferred pension and retirement savings plans. This information also will come from your W-2s, and you can see here that they tell you exactly which boxes to grab. Next, you will, as parents, you will provide information about your assets, balances of your checking and savings accounts, any cash you have on hand, any investments that you might have. And on the next slide, I'm going to go through which investments you should and should not report. And then if you own a business with 100 or more employees, you do have to enter information about that business as well. Now, this is a list of assets. This is taken directly from the FAFSA site. You should include investment properties, but not the home that you live in, any rental properties that you have, trust funds, UGMA, UTMA accounts, money markets, mutual funds, certificates of deposit, stocks, options, bonds, and other securities. And you can see these other items. Remember that you do have to report college savings account balances, such as the 529. So make sure you have those documents with you so that you can easily report them. Now, we'll tell you there's one field to report all of your investments, so you will have to manually tabulate that information and enter it there in that one field. Do not include, of course, as I mentioned, the home that you live in, the balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts, because you've already reported that in another question, any ABLE accounts, the value of your life insurance, retirement plans, 401k, pension funds, annuities, and the value of non-education IRAs. So remember, all your reporting are your education accounts. You're finished now with the parent financial section. You'll move on to the student financial section. If the student filed a return in 2021, they can also use this data retrieval tool. And they will be asked every question that we just went through in the parent financial section. So if they do have untaxed income or they have investments or properties, be sure you have that information to report for the student. And now it's almost time to sign and submit your FAFSA, but you want to make sure that you are reviewing your FAFSA summary before you submit. The FAFSA summary is a list of every question you're asked and your answer to each. So make sure that you are double checking that your answers are accurate. If you do need to update something, over on the left, you can use the hyperlinks to go directly back to that question and make that correction. New this year is a demographic survey that you were asked to complete. You can answer the questions or you can decline to answer them. Then it's time to agree to the terms of this contract. And remember, this is a federal document, so you are agreeing that the information you've provided is accurate to the best of your knowledge. The student will be asked to use his federal student aid ID to electronically sign the FAFSA. The parent with the FSA ID will also electronically sign. But what if we are an eligible non-citizen? Either the student or the parent. There is an option on this page. You can see, choose another way to sign. You will download a signature page from the FAFSA site, have the student or parent or both, whatever your situation, manually sign the signature page and mail it on to Federal Student Aid at the address listed on that page. Then you submit your FAFSA. And when you do, you'll automatically receive a FAFSA confirmation pop-up. I would encourage you to print this page or take a screenshot of it because there's a lot of information on what happens next. It does take 3 to 5 business days to process the FAFSA. And at that time, your information goes on to the colleges that you've listed. You'll see the estimated expected family contribution, and this is not a dollar amount. It is a formula that Federal Student Aid uses to using your FAFSA answers to determine what they feel you might be responsible for paying. And they send that formula over to each college financial aid office. And the financial aid offices are going to begin working on your financial aid offer. You'll also see an estimated eligibility section. This could include a Pell Grant, student loan estimates, but remember that this is not your award. You will be receiving that from your financial aid office. Then on that same pop-up confirmation page, you're going to see the schools that you sent your FAFSA data to. So once the financial aid offices do receive your FAFSA information, most times they're going to wait until you complete your application for admissions and they hear from the admissions department that you've been accepted. Then they will draw down your FAFSA data and begin working on an award for you. They're going to determine the cost of attendance for you to go to their school for 1 academic year. They'll begin to look for any grants and scholarships that they can offer you to attend their college so that they can determine what is your responsibility to pay. And that is considered and called your net price. Now, once you do decide upon the college that you're planning to attend, you always want to accept your financial aid in this order. Of course, your free money, grants and scholarships first, your earned money, federal work study, And then your last resort will be student loans. Remember, you're going to be receiving a financial aid offer from each of the colleges that you have listed on your FAFSA. Continue to look for scholarships. You'll find them through religious and community organizations, clubs that you might belong to. Of course, the top scholarships, so stay on track for that. Check with the admissions and financial aid offices at the colleges you're applying to. They see a lot of money coming in and out of their campuses, so make sure that you're checking with them to see if they've heard of any scholarships. And of course, your college counselor. She hears about everything from colleges and organizations around the Baton Rouge area and the region and of course across the country. So make sure you're keeping up with that. And then nonprofit organizations like Leela. Also check with your parents' employers. Sometimes they offer scholarships for their employees' children. If you find that you still have some unmet financial need, Leela does administer a nonprofit education loan program. It's called Leela Choice, and it's just for Louisiana residents. And if you'd like to find out more about that, you can visit that site at leelachoice.org. We have completed and published our FAFSA completion guide for the class of 2023. And our parent guide for planning and paying for college. And of course, our senior checklist. These are all free publications for Louisiana high school seniors. So if you haven't received your copy, please contact me directly and I'll be happy to send it over to you. We're offering 2 scholarship opportunities this year, a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship and the Choose Louisiana scholarship if you plan to attend a college in the state of Louisiana. Within the FAFSA guide, you will see QR codes to be able to go directly to those applications if you meet the qualifications, or I'll be happy to send you the link to those applications. If you would like to schedule a one-on-one virtual FAFSA completion session, it will be with me, and I'm happy to stay on the line with you as you complete, or we can do a Zoom meeting so I can see your form as you move through it. Please use this QR code to schedule that session. But if you plan to go ahead and jump into the FAFSA on your own, maybe you are a pro at this and you have older children who've completed a FAFSA 4, but you just have a question that you want to ask briefly, here is our FAFSA helpline and also my email address. If you want to begin a dialogue with me about anything maybe that you don't want to discuss this evening. So I'm going to now go to the chat box and see if we have any questions. Please feel free at this time to, I know we have a large number of students and parents here. So please feel free to use the chat box to ask your questions. And I'm looking through now. If you own investment property with others, do you split the value or report the whole value? You will only report your interest in that investment property. Does each parent need their own FSA ID? Only one parent will be asked to sign the student's FAFSA, so you can decide if that's going to be mom or dad, but only one parent needs an FSA ID. Now, if you're a parent who has already completed a FAFSA in the past, maybe you've been in school recently or you have an older child, you will still use that same FSA ID. You will always use it for federal student aid documents. But before you do use it this year to sign your graduate's FAFSA, please go in and make sure all of your contact information is up to date. The next question we have do you have to have a physical copy of your Social Security card? You'll not have to present your card to anyone. It's just important that whatever name is on that card is on your FAFSA. I know for me, for some reason, way back when, I guess when I got married, I have my first name, my middle name, my maiden name, and my married name. So I didn't even realize that until I did my child's FAFSA and took a look at that card. So make sure that you do know the name printed on that card.
I don't know. I need to text her and find out.
If a FAFSA has already been submitted, can it be changed? Absolutely. You can always go back in. You can update your information. You can add a school. If you reported the wrong parent, or you have a situation where you thought you were supposed to add a guardian's information, you can always go back in, amend that FAFSA, but be sure you sign and submit it again. Do you have recommendations if your financial situation has changed from 2021? And I'm so glad you asked that, because if I gave you every tip that I have happened upon, we would be here probably for about 3 hours. Yes, you must report the information about your 2021 income. This is just a generic federal form. If your situation has changed, if somebody's lost a job, or there's been a decrease in hourly hours worked, or even if you've had some unexpected medical expenses that have cropped up since 21, provide the information as requested on the FAFSA. Once you submit it, contact each financial aid office and let them know that your situation has changed. They are trained, they are there to help you. They're like your college counselor. They want to help you find any and every dollar that they can to help you complete an academic year on their campus. Remember, this is a recruitment tool, so they want to be able to offer you enough money to attend their school. So great question. Yes, submit the information as requested, but contact those financial aid offices. But remember, it's your responsibility. They're not going to just go out there and ask everybody, hey, do you need some more money? Are you sure you're okay? So make sure you're contacting them. Okay, I'm down to the last question. Does anybody else have anything to add? Yes, when I say to contact the financial aid offices, that means that on each college campus, you have an admissions office that deals with, your admissions applications, and then you have a separate office that deals with just financial aid. So contact each university. You can go on their website. You can actually get an email address if you want to communicate that way, or their phone number, and talk with them directly. What is the deadline? The deadline, the federal deadline is June 30th of 2024. In other words, you can submit a FAFSA anytime between October 1st, when the FAFSA opened, and the last day of the academic year. But remember that these monies are offered on a first come, first served basis. So if the longer you wait, the less opportunity to receive the maximum award. So please get that done as soon as possible. Also remember that the TOPS office does require that the student complete a FAFSA. That is the application for TOPS. And their deadline is in February. So if you're interested in that TOPS scholarship, then you want to make sure that you definitely submit it before February. I will be providing a copy of these slides and a recording of the presentation to your college counselor, Ms. Corlino. So be on the lookout for that. But if you want it directly from me, just email me and I'm happy to send it on to you. Would anybody else like to ask a question? Okay, well, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and end our session, but please feel free to contact me at any time. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. I hope everybody has a great senior year, and thanks again for having me this evening.